Well, hey man, thanks for popping in here. I've never met you before, so this is fun.
Yeah, this is great.
I'm talking to two guys we've never met each other before.
No, it's cool.
No, no, we're from the past.
That's
Yeah,
right.
yeah, yeah.
Haunting
We're
the
the ghosts of
comic.
we're the ghosts of San Diego past.
Oh man, it's guys. My glasses keep getting. This is a funny thing about my channel. A lot of people have been noticing is that my glasses get fogged up because I live in the south down here.
Right.
It's so
And
steamy and humid all
it's
the time.
that steamy.
It's really hot. It's weird because it's like we're towards the end of October and it's still really hot.
Yeah, I was thinking about it today, and I think that I might be. I'm not going to say that I'm Jay's first fan ever because he definitely had family, but I might be the first person outside of his family that was like his comic book fan.
For sure. Yeah, that's a nice thing to say. Thank you.
Oh,
Yeah, I mean, I
But yeah,
I
not
wouldn't
my
have I wouldn't have done all those other things, right? I wouldn't have like, you know, tried to get you published with other publishers and published you myself if that
right.
wasn't the case. But I
well,
saw like some of Jay's first comic book work, I think.
Yeah.
what was that? That's my. What is it? What,
Oh,
comics
there
or-
was like he had lots of sketches and drawings, but I think when we were at art school, he did a mini comic called The Land of Microscope. Oh, he did. He contributed to a comic that we had done for art school, and he did this piece called Land of Microscope, which was you can actually see it on if you go way back on the Instagram page. I think it's still there unless it got archived. Um, and uh, I'll describe it, and then Jay can tell me whether I've described it properly. It was a comic book. It was a story that kind of used as its source that thing that happens if you take like a black page and you photocopy it and then you enlarge it and you enlarge that and you enlarge that and you enlarge that and you enlarge that and it as the grain of an old school photocopier
Hmm.
got incorporated into it, he ended up with these blobs, and he turned all of the blobs into little cells under a microscope. And there are these cells that are just talking. It's like, hey, how's it going? How's it going? And then this one little cell goes by with a hat. And the guys are like, oh man, Hal is so cool. Yeah. And then the next panel, they all have hats. And you think, oh, that's funny. That's a funny gag. And then the last panel is a doctor with his patient at the doctor's office saying, yeah, you have like 3 weeks to live.
Oh my God. Jesus.
So
And I
pretty
think
much,
that's like, yeah, and
I've
that's
been
and that's
telling
kind
you
of like
the same
Jay's
joke ever
style.
since.
Yeah, it's like funny and then dark.
Michelle and I were in art school together, and first met on a photography trip in Mexico, actually. Um,
Yeah.
I guess you were just entering fourth year. For
Yeah, it was between my third and fourth year.
Yeah, and my father, John Stevens, taught there. He taught photography at the Ontario College of Art and Design. What's it called now? OCAD do Ontario College
Oh,
of Art.
can't you? Yeah.
Maybe they've added more since then. I don't even know. But that was my first course. So I was basically checking out what a college level art course was like. And so it was this accredited trip to Mexico where you take photographs in San Miguel de Allende. And Michelle was my roommate. So we'd never met. And I had my sketchbook with me, and it was full of all kinds of weird crap like that. So when we got back to Toronto and back to art school, I guess, how did you get involved with the school paper, Michelle?
It was part of a class that I was taking called Publication Seminar.
Okay.
And so it was almost like it was a publishing class for art students.
Okay.
And so we worked on our own projects, and as part of it, we worked on the school paper. The school paper at the time was called Flea Bite, and so the comic supplement was called Itchy Tales, and it had a very kind of EC Comics cover. Two color was like purple and black. There's some zipatone, and yeah, just like it was fun working on something like that because I think Raw magazine had just kind of been out around that time. Drawn and Quarterly was just starting,
Mhm.
and being at an art school, there was a good mix of people who liked comics that were kind of like a traditional narrative, and other people who just liked the idea of comics and just did their own thing. I think one of my favorite pieces from that little anthology was, it was just a series of weird faces in sequence. It was like a 1-page
Yeah, it's great.
thing. Yeah.
So when you met Jay, you already were a publisher at that point.
Well, I mean, we did something through the school.
Yeah.
And then I think it was around the same time that I did a mini comic that Jay was part of. And that's where that Land of Microscope story ended up was that first issue of this mini comic that I did, mini comic anthology, where I hand silk screened the covers and had the interiors printed at a local copy shop, and hand assembled them and sold them at the shops nearby. I think we printed like 300 copies.
Yep.
Yeah.
We just crossed that same milestone with the new book.
That's right.
300 backers. Woo!
300 backers. Yeah. I think made a little bit more money on Kickstarter than with that mini comic, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard, right? For like something like Dwellings, like it's like really hard to get like eyes on a Kickstarter, isn't it? Like, how do you?
Well, I guess I suppose, we don't really have any kind of A/B testing that we've done.
Mm-hmm.
All we're doing is just throwing everything that we have as a couple of guys who have social media accounts and websites and ideas. Jay and I were talking about, just the fact that we're basically our own ad agency. Anything that we want to come up with, we're like, oh, well, this will be an Instagram thing. And
yeah,
this can be a promo that we do on Kickstarter, or here's something that'll work on Twitter. Because, there's sometimes things that work across everything. And then sometimes you need to think about the particular social media audience. But really, we are not letting up. We're just doing everything that we can all the time within our means, because, we have connections in the industry, but some of them are older and some of them are, no longer.
Yeah.
So I think that it really helps that we had a successful crowdfunding for Jay's collection Dejects last year. And they're definitely, I would hazard to say, I mean, like I said, it's not like something that we've done like a full study on, but it does feel like the Kickstarter name does help with a crowdfunding initiative. Last year I used Fundraiser, which is a Canadian crowdfunding platform that was free, which is part of the reason that I chose it. They didn't take any percentage, and it did well, but I'm seeing a lot more kind of Kickstarter fans themselves, people who are like super backers, or who have previously backed other Kickstarters, are backing Dwellings. And it didn't take long for us to surpass the number of total backers with Dwellings that we had with Dejects. But we looked at other Kickstarters from other comic companies and other creators, and just looked at things that seemed like they made sense as far as stretch goals, or things that you could package together that would be primarily, like, I think our primary driver was things that people would want. We've kind of been treating it like it's a pop-up shop for Jay's book.
Yeah, like a month-long convention table or something.
Exactly. Congratulations, because it's kicking ass. Like, you guys have made way more than you expected to make.
Oh, yeah, it was funny when we were getting ready to publish the page. I had set what felt like a bit of a lofty goal, but I thought, oh, let's try this. We'll ask for $2,000 Canadian. And Jay, I think the day before, said, could we just put it down to $1? I just feel more comfortable at around $1. And I thought, sure, because I'm pretty sure we're going to get to that 2,000 by the end.
Yeah.
And it's just blown past that. And I think for me, I can't speak for Jay, but going in with, when I say no expectations, I mean it on a kind of almost like on a philosophical level. Just kind of go in and do our best and see what happens. And obviously you have a goal and you do want to be able to produce the project. But with print on demand as it is, we went in it thinking, well, if we get 10 people, we can still print 10 comics and send them out, and it'll be like, well, okay, we did it, and it wouldn't have been a huge success, but it would have at least been like, well, okay, we tried that out, and it didn't lose us anything other than our own time investment.
Is Dwellings a series?
Yeah, that's the other thing too, is that I felt like I'm excited by and motivated by, maybe it's fear and panic too, but I like starting grassroots again and kind of just building from nowhere. It didn't I mean, on the Kickstarter we mentioned that I did these animated projects and stuff. We're hoping that there's some fans that cross over, but I kind of like building it up from zero. It's thrilling, and because it's a long-term goal, I mean, I'm planning on doing more of these, and continuing with it, is that I just wanted enough of a start, like literally a kickstart to this idea, that I would have been happy with $1,000 just to be like, okay, I'm not totally wasting my time here. Yeah. Yeah, it's amazing to me that we have 300 people that care this much about it, that get it. And yeah, like Michel was saying too, what's really cool about this new model is that you can actually afford to sell directly to 300 people and not worry about selling 3,000 copies through a distributor to break even. The one big concern for me there is that I've always been supported greatly by independent comic shops, and some of my best friends run these shops, and it's not like we're deliberately or intentionally cutting out the shops from the process. It's just so much easier for us to start something new this way. And one of the things that we figured out for DJs, and that we worked hard on figuring out for this too, thank you, Michel, was how to be able to get them to the shops that wanted them.
So there's a price for shops.
Yes, but what I opted to do, rather than having, because I've seen on many Kickstarters that they'll have like these packs, buy a pack of 5, buy a pack of 10, whatever, at the various levels. What I opted to do is just create a portal to our regular web store, and I've just been reaching out to some of the shops that have been interested directly with just like a straight up discount. Cool. If you order more than, I think it's like, if your total order is more than $25, you get your 50% discount, and it's a kind of a secret store with a password. And so far we've had a good, I think, half dozen shops get in touch, and that'll be something that we're going to look to build on. In a way, it's almost like the Kickstarter is our initial order from Diamond to kind of get things going. Mm-hmm. And then, everything after that is the extra. So selling directly to shops becomes feasible once we reach a certain level where we can print enough so that the production cost makes it possible to sell it at 50% off.
So, Michel, do you have a bunch of back stock of the old comics that you published back in the 90s?
I do not, no. In fact, another thing that I kind of like about this print-on-demand model is, right now, after having done a couple of Kickstarters, crowdfunded last year, one for Dylan Horrocks's comic Pickle, mm-hmm. and for DJs, I have 10 copies of DJs sitting on a shelf. I don't have boxes and boxes. I have a 2-bedroom apartment. I don't want to have tons of stuff. And that was another thing that Jay and I talked about at the beginning, was just kind of doing something in a bit of a sustainable model. Yeah. Printing as we need them. You need a certain minimum for it to be worthwhile, but printing as you need them. And we also try to print local. So last time we printed in Montreal, and this for Dwellings, we're looking at a printer that's in Toronto, and I have my fingers crossed that that's going to work out. We've got a test print going off to them. They don't know what they have. If this works, they don't know what they have with their printing system. They could have a lot of people wanting to print like floppy retro style comics with them and more if they got it out there.
Do you have a fulfillment center that's going to be doing that stuff, or?
Yeah, it's called Jay coming to Toronto and us sitting in the living room and packing stuff.
It really is a return to old glory. Yeah.
Going back in time to, you know, the early 90s when you were doing just mini comics and stuff and you go to shows, would you make a good chunk of money like after a show, like when you'd be sitting there tabling selling mini comics? Would that be okay? Like, could you live off of that?
No. Well,
I don't think so. I think we had
I mean, we were in our 20s, right? So
yeah,
we just needed to have, like, you know, enough money to buy Skyflakes crackers from the local Oriental grocer and maybe go out for a beer every once in a while, you know?
Yeah.
But it wasn't sustainable.
Yeah, when we were doing really well, I think you and Dylan Horrocks and I were sharing a room in San Diego. So we weren't doing that well.
No. No, and I remember we'd make enough of the San Diego show that you guys would get your kind of your cut, and then the rest of it we would go and blow at like a cafe. That was like, what is it, Cafe Lulu?
Yeah.
And go and like a bunch of us would just go and have drinks and have dinner, and that would be like, woo, celebrate.
Yeah.
It was great.
When you moved to LA to work on cartoons?
Yeah.
Just your own cartoons, or were you working on any other shows?
No, just my own stuff. I mean, I had done some freelance characters design and stuff previously. So I have sort of worked on other shows, but never as a ongoing, always as like a one-off. But yeah, Tuttenstein was done in New York and LA. So I didn't have to relocate for that. And also I was a creative consultant on that. Like once Discovery Kids moved ahead with that show, I didn't need to be involved in the day-to-day. I didn't have any experience doing it, so they didn't think that I needed to be a showrunner or anything, which is cool. Whereas when Secret Saturdays got greenlit with Cartoon Network in LA, I was involved in every aspect. So yeah, I was commuting from Guelph to LA for the 5 years or so that Secret Saturdays was in development. And then when it launched, I moved there for like a few months. It was like a long summer because I still had a wife and kids here in Guelph who we could not afford to relocate in Los Angeles. I mean, it just wasn't, I didn't know how long the show would last. I'm not going to like pack up our whole life and relocate. But yeah, it was, and it ended up really ruining the marriage. So I don't know. Yeah, I wouldn't ultimately say it was worth it.
The show itself ruined your marriage, or the traveling?
The travel, I think, mostly the travel and the extra work and the long nights. Yeah, the traveling did not help. No.
Okay, I thought your wife just didn't like the show. She was like, "Thanks for coming in. It was nice."
Yeah, for sure. It was great to meet you too, Noah, and thanks for having me on and for having Jay on. And